Posted in r/relationships by u/InkandArrows on October 26th. Title: We're professional rivals who hate each other. We also have an anonymous pen pal connection, and I think she just quoted my secret phrase. Flair. Complex situation. Long.
Hey Reddit, throwaway for obvious world-colliding reasons. I need to talk this into the void before my head explodes. I'm living in a paradox, and the walls are closing in. Let's start with the players. In the blue corner, wearing the mantle of my professional nemesis, Elara Vance, VP of Design at Elara and Finch, the oldest, stuffiest, most prestigious architecture firm in the city. Pictures sharp, immaculate bob haircut, the color of espresso, suits that look like they were engineered, not tailored, a smile that's all cutting remark and zero warmth. She's brilliant, ruthless, and has personally snatched 3 major contracts from my firm's grasp in the last 2 years, with a combination of icy precision and what I can only describe as aesthetic sorcery. We're routinely shortlisted for the same projects. We trade barbs in industry journals. At the annual Urban Design Gala last year, she accidentally spilled a very old glass of red wine on the charcoal suede shoes I'd foolishly worn. We loathe each other. The feeling is mutual, palpable, and the driving force behind my last 2 promotions. My boss basically told me, beat Vance, and the next office with the window is yours. In the red corner, me, Leo Thorne, VP of Innovative Design at Calder & Strong, the disruptive, read, younger, louder, more experimental firm across town. I believe in sustainable materials, open community spaces, and beating Elara Vance. Now enter the anonymous white flag in the middle of our war. 2 years ago, after a particularly brutal loss to A&F, the Pinnacle Towers project still hurts, I was wallowing in a scotch-fueled haze of self-pity. I stumbled upon an old forum for letter-writing enthusiasts, a holdover from the early internet. On a whim, fueled by loneliness and a desperate need for a connection that had nothing to do with floor plans or client schmoozing, I signed up for a blind pen pal match. The premise was simple, almost quaint. You are matched with a stranger based on a broad interest. Ours was architecture and the built environment, and you communicate solely through an encrypted messaging system on the forum. No names, no locations, no professions, just thoughts. My match's username was Sparrow. Sparrow was incredible. From the first message, it was clear they saw space, felt it in a way I'd never articulated. We didn't talk about specific projects or clients. We talked about the soul of places, the way light falls in a forgotten courtyard at 4 p.m., the profound silence held within a library's stacks, the arrogant poetry of a skyscraper challenging the clouds. We shared book recommendations, obscure philosophical essays on habitation, terrible sketches we'd never show anyone else. It was a sanctuary, a secret garden of the mind where I wasn't Leo Thorne, contender. I was just a guy who loved buildings. Sparrow was my refuge, witty, deeply insightful, with a surprising vein of gentle melancholy that would surface sometimes. We've written nearly every day for 730 days. It's the most honest relationship I've had in a decade. I never questioned the coincidence of our shared passion. Architecture is a wide field. They could be a retired professor in Oslo, a student in Tokyo, a hobbyist historian in Buenos Aires. The anonymity was the point, the freedom it granted. The fracture started last Tuesday. The Henderson Cultural Center project, a massive, publicly funded complex, is the crown jewel of the city's architectural calendar. Elara and Finch and Calder & Strong are, of course, the 2 finalists. The final pitch meeting was a gladiatorial arena. Elara was across the polished mahogany table, a queen surveying her domain. Her presentation was, damn her, flawless, a sleek, timeless design that referenced classical forms with a whisper of modernism. It was safe, but impeccably so. My presentation was the opposite, a bold, fragmented structure of interlocking glass and reclaimed timber, designed to look like a grove of light. Risky, polarizing.
During the Q&A, a stodgy board member frowned at my model. "Mr. Thorne, it's interesting, but doesn't it feel a bit disjointed? Where is the unifying principle?" Before I could answer, Elara leaned forward, her voice a cool, clear knife. "I believe Leo is aiming for a dialectical experience, not a monolithic statement, but a conversation between parts, a built argument, if you will. The unity is in the tension itself. It's either genius or madness. There's rarely a middle ground." The room went quiet. She'd defended my work, but she'd done it with words that were eerily, intimately familiar. A built argument. The unity is in the tension. I'd written those exact phrases to Sparrow weeks ago in a late-night ramble about my design philosophy for this very project. My blood turned to ice. I stared at her. She met my gaze, her expression of mild academic curiosity, as if she'd simply analyzed an abstract concept. No flicker of recognition, no secret smile, just Elara Vance being brutally, accurately insightful. Coincidence? Architects share jargon. Maybe. I was so rattled I fumbled the rest of the Q&A. The meeting ended with no decision, but the board looked thoughtful. Elara packed her things with serene efficiency. As she passed me, she paused. "The timber cladding on the east facade. It's a brave choice. It'll weather beautifully, like a seaside cliff." Another bolt of lightning, like a seaside cliff. A praise from a poem I'd sent Sparrow about materials with memory. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, a stiff, jerky motion. That night, I messaged Sparrow, my fingers trembling.
Had a hell of a day at work. Felt like my own thoughts were being used as ammunition against me. Ever feel like the universe is playing a joke with a punchline you don't get?
Constantly. But sometimes the joke is a gift in a very prickly wrapper. What was the ammunition?
Something I'd shared here, I think, about tension and arguments made of steel and glass. It was unsettling. There was a longer pause than usual.
The walls between our worlds are thinner than we think. Perhaps your rival is more perceptive than you give them credit for. Or perhaps they have a secret garden of their own.
I stared at the screen. Secret garden. My term for this, for what we have. I'd called it that just last month. That's a lovely thought, and a terrifying one. What if our gardens have a connecting door we never knew about?
Then you have a choice, to keep it locked or to see what's on the other side. Sleep well, Inkwell.
The conversation felt charged, layered with double meanings I was too afraid to decipher. Was Sparrow hinting? Or was I, paranoid and competitive, seeing ghosts in the architecture? The next clue came yesterday. The industry newsletter arrived. There was a profile on Elara Vance. The usual stuff, her rise at A&F, her design ethos. A pull quote jumped off the screen at me. Vance describes her ideal space as one that holds the silence like a cup holds water. I dropped the tablet. In the second month of our correspondence, Sparrow had sent me a haiku they'd written. Empty museum hall, holding the silence so deep, like a cup holds water. It was unique, poetic. I'd never heard that phrase anywhere else. Two coincidences are a pattern. A pattern is a truth you're trying to avoid. Elara Vance is Sparrow. My sanctuary is my battlefield. The person who knows my deepest creative self is the person dedicated to publicly dismantling my professional one. The mind I've come to care for, perhaps more than care for, belongs to the woman I'm supposed to despise. Reddit, I am unmoored. Do I confront her at the next pitch meeting in a message to Sparrow shattering our one sacred rule? Do I let the charade continue, knowing every tender word from Sparrow is also coming from the lips that so effortlessly critique my life's work? Or worse, what if she already knows? What if I'm the punchline of the universe's joke? I have 8,000 words of chaos in my head. I guess I'll start writing them here. The week after the Henderson meeting was a special kind of hell. Every interaction with Elara, real or imagined, was now refracted through this terrifying, brilliant new lens.
I watched old interview clips of her. I reread every industry article. Her quotes, once just ammunition for my competitive analysis, now screamed at me. In a piece on urban green spaces, she said, "A park is not a picture, it is a paragraph in the city's story." Sparrow, 8 months ago, had written, "Think of the old Grayson Park not as a postcard, but as a run-on sentence of grass and laughter." The same idea, the same literary metaphor, twisted just slightly. I was a detective building a case against my own peace of mind. At the office, I was distracted. My assistant, Maya, finally cornered me by the coffee machine. "You're typing and deleting emails for 10 minutes at a time. You stared at the structural schematics for the Henderson project like they'd offended your mother. What gives? Is it Vance? Did she get under your skin that bad?" "I have no idea how deep under my skin she is," I muttered, then instantly regretted it. Maya's eyebrows shot up. "Whoa, okay, that's vivid." "Forget it, just prepping for the next round." I fled to my office, a glass box suddenly feeling like a fishbowl. The urge to message Sparrow was a physical ache, but now every keystroke felt like walking through a minefield. Was I talking to my confidant or feeding intelligence to the enemy? I settled on something neutral.
The concept of a secret garden has been on my mind. Have you ever been afraid to find the door? Her reply came faster than usual.
Always. A garden is a controlled wilderness. Opening a door invites the unpredictable, chaos, or a different kind of order. Why the fear now?
She was talking to me, really talking to me. Or was she talking to Leo Thorne, her rival, suspecting my suspicion? The meta layer was giving me a headache. What if the person on the other side of the door is someone you're supposed to be at war with? A long pause. The typing indicator appeared, vanished, reappeared.
Then the war is based on a fiction, a role you play in daylight. The garden exists in moonlight, where roles are shed. The question isn't about the door. It's about which version of yourself you trust more, the soldier or the gardener.
I leaned back, the breath knocked out of me. The soldier or the gardener? It was an elegant, devastating dichotomy, and it was pure Sparrow. This wasn't Elara Vance being clever. This was the person I'd connected with for 2 years, offering wisdom. It felt like a lifeline. But which one was the fiction? The soldier's hatred or the gardener's intimacy? I decided on a test, a low-stakes professional provocation. The following day, I had Maya send over to Ethelgard and Finch a very public, very pointed critique of their recent waterfront development, citing a failure to engage with the socio-economic dialectic of the shoreline. It was academic sniping, the kind we did all the time. I signed it. The Elara Vance response was swift and merciless. By afternoon, a counter-critique was published, eviscerating my firm's last public housing project as aesthetic virtue signaling that prioritizes form over the fundamental grammar of home. It was signed, with a flourish, by her. The soldier was on the battlefield, swords drawn. That night, Sparrow was different.
Had a frustrating day. The world of daylight is full of noise and posturing. It's exhausting to speak in a language of barbs when you have a vocabulary of something else.
My heart hammered against my ribs. Barbs? Sounds painful.
It's part of the role, the armor. Sometimes you have to speak the language of the arena, even if you'd rather be speaking in poetry.
I couldn't take it anymore. The dance was too precise. I had to step on my partner's toes. I wrote something today, a fragment. Tell me what you think. The shoreline is not a line, but a conversation. It argues with the water, concedes, reclaims. To build on it is to interrupt. The best interruption should be a comma, not a full stop. I hit send. I'd written that, just now, for her, for both of them. It was my test. The minute stretched into an hour. No reply. 2 hours. I felt sick. I'd broken the unspoken rule. I'd brought my daylight war into our moonlit garden. I'd shown my hand. Just as I was about to log off in despair, the reply appeared.
That's beautiful, truly. The comma, not a full stop. It's a gentler way of seeing the conflict. My day was full of full stops, exclamation points even. I prefer the comma.
And then, another message, a minute later.
Inkwell, do you ever wish we could meet for a coffee? Just to hear the voice behind the words, to see if the commas sound the same in the air.
I stared. This was uncharted territory. We had never, ever suggested breaking anonymity. It was our foundational law. Was this Sparrow genuinely feeling the same desperate pull I was? Or was this Elara Vance, master strategist, laying a trap to finally, conclusively unmask me and win the war by destroying my sanctuary? The soldier in me saw a trap. The gardener felt a bud, fragile and hopeful, pushing through cracked earth. I didn't know how to answer. I closed the laptop. For the first time in 2 years, I left a message from Sparrow unanswered. Silence, I discovered, is its own kind of scream. For 3 days, I didn't message Sparrow. For 3 days, Sparrow didn't message me. Our garden, always buzzing with the quiet hum of connection, fell into a frost. It was agony. Every notification on my phone was a jolt of hope that instantly curdled into disappointment. I checked the old forum incessantly. Nothing. The silence in my digital sanctuary was mirrored by a new, prickly awareness in the real world. The Henderson Project Board called for a joint working session, a collaborative exploration of synergies, they called it, a nightmare scenario. The conference room at the Civic Planning Office was all neutral tones and filtered light. Elara arrived exactly on time, a portfolio under her arm like a shield. She looked tired. There were faint lavender shadows under her eyes that her impeccable makeup couldn't fully conceal. Her usual razor-sharp aura seemed slightly blurred at the edges. "Leo," she nodded, her voice flat. "Elara." I pulled out a chair for her, an old automatic habit. She glanced at the chair, then at me, a flicker of something unreadable in her gaze. Surprise? Suspicion? She sat without a word. The session was mediated by a painfully enthusiastic facilitator who believed in post-it notes and yes and exercises. Elara and I participated with the grim dedication of prisoners building their own gallows. We were polite, professionally accommodating. The friction was gone, replaced by a vast, echoing distance. It was worse than the fighting. During a break, as we stood side by side at the beverage station, both reaching for the same tragic carafe of lukewarm coffee, our hands nearly brushed. We both pulled back as if shocked. "After you," I said, my voice strangely hoarse. "No, please," she said, not looking at me. I poured a cup, the silence between us swelling. I couldn't bear it. "The comma idea," I said, abruptly, staring into the black liquid. "It has merit." She went very still. I watched her reflection in the stainless steel of the coffee machine. Her eyes were wide. She carefully poured her own cup. "It's less final," she said quietly to her coffee. "A full stop is an ending. A comma is a pause, a chance to reconsider." My breath caught. It was almost verbatim what Sparrow had said. "I prefer the comma." "Do you often feel like you're speaking in full stops?" I asked, the soldier in me completely disarmed, the gardener stepping forward, trowel in hand. She finally turned her head and looked at me, not as Elara Vance, rival, but as a person. The exhaustion in her eyes was now layered with a profound, wary curiosity. "Lately," she said, her voice barely above a whisper,
It feels like it's the only punctuation I know." She held my gaze for a second too long, then blinked, and the shutters came down. The mask of cool composure slid back into place. "We should get back. They'll want to discuss material palettes." The rest of the session was a blur. All I could see was the vulnerability she'd shown for that one fleeting moment. It was a crack in the monolith, and through it, I saw Sparrow. That night, the silence from Sparrow was a physical weight on my chest. I had to try, not as a test, not as a strategy, but as a plea.
"I'm sorry for my silence. The daylight world got loud, and I got scared. The idea of coffee, it's terrifying. What if the voice doesn't match the words? What if the gardener and the soldier can't exist in the same person?" I sent it and waited. An hour later, a reply.
What if they can? What if the soldier is just the gardener defending his plot, and the gardener is the soldier tending his wounds? The fear is real, Inkwell. I feel it too. But the silence is worse. The silence is a full stop we didn't choose.
Tears, stupid and sudden, pricked my eyes. This was her. This was my Sparrow. The same soul, whether her name was Elara or not. Then let's not choose a full stop. Let's choose a comma, a long, lingering one. "Meet me." The typing indicator appeared and stayed on for a full 2 minutes.
Where?
We chose neutral ground, the city's old botanical gardens, in the glass-domed orchid house. It was public, beautiful, and fittingly, a garden. The time, Saturday, 10 a.m., a comma in the weekend. I arrived 20 minutes early, a bundle of frayed nerves. I bought a coffee from the cart outside and couldn't drink it. I paced among the orchids, their exotic, silent faces seeming to judge my turmoil. What was the plan? To see her? Confirm the truth and then what? Yell? Laugh? Cry? At 9:58, I saw her. She came through the main archway of the greenhouse, not in a suit, but in dark jeans and a simple, elegant cream-colored sweater. Her hair was down, falling softly around her shoulders, a version of her I'd never seen. She looked younger, softer, terrified. She held a single, leather-bound notebook against her chest like a night shield. Our eyes met across a bed of vibrant purple cattleyas. The air left my lungs. There was no explosion, no cosmic shockwave. Instead, a deep, resonant hum of recognition, the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place with absolute, quiet certainty. Of course it was her. The sharp intelligence in her eyes, now wide with vulnerability, the careful posture. It was all so obvious. I walked towards her. She stood her ground, but her knuckles were white on the notebook. "Sparrow," I said, the name feeling both foreign and profoundly right on my tongue. A slight, almost imperceptible shudder went through her. "Inkwell?" Her voice was the same, yet utterly different, softer, no blade in it. We stood there, two rivals in a jungle of flowers, the gulf of 2 years of intimate words and 2 years of professional hatred between us. "You quoted my haiku," I said finally, because it was the simplest thread to pull. "You described the Henderson Project as a built argument," she countered softly. "You prefer commas. So do you." A faint, tremulous smile touched her lips. It transformed her face. It was Sparrow's wit shining through Elara's eyes. "This is insane." "Completely," I agreed, a hysterical laugh bubbling in my throat. "I've been dissecting your interviews for a week. I sent that ridiculous shoreline critique just to see how you'd react." Her smile grew a fraction, gaining strength. "I published that scathing rebuttal purely because I saw your signature and my soldier instincts took over. I almost messaged you that night to apologize for the full stop. I left you on red. I was unmoored." I noticed. She hugged the notebook tighter. "I brought this. It's you. Everything you ever wrote that moved me.
I printed them. I needed to know they were real. That admission shattered the last of my defenses. I'd done the same, in a folder on my desktop marked Reference. "Can we sit?" she asked. We found a secluded bench nestled between towering leafy ferns. The humid, fragrant air closed around us, a world apart. "How?" was the first real question. She let out a long breath. After the Pinnacle Towers win, it felt hollow. Everyone at the firm was celebrating, and I just felt alone, like I'd won a battle but lost the point of the war. I found that forum, a place with no names, no history, just ideas. You looked at me, her gaze searching. You were the same? Almost verbatim. The loss gutted me. I needed a place where my value wasn't tied to a contract. I ran my hair through my hair. All this time, all those words about light and silence and the soul of places, they were from you. And the vitriol at the gala? The red wine on your shoes? A blush crept up her neck. That was petty. I just read your message about finding beauty in imperfection, and then you were at the gala holding court, being so smug and perfect. I wanted to make a flaw. It was childish. I remembered the message. I'd been talking about the beauty of weathered stone. I wasn't smug. I was nervous. You intimidate me. She barked a short, surprised laugh. I intimidate you? Leo, your creativity is a freight train. It's reckless and breathtaking, and it makes my carefully ordered designs look like they're standing still. You terrify me. We were silent for a moment, this new truth settling between us. Our hatred was born of respect, our rivalry of awe. What now? She whispered, the question hanging in the orchid-scented air. They expect a victor on the Henderson project, not a truth. Do they? I asked, an idea, wild and fragile, beginning to form. What did Sparrow once say? The unity is in the tension. What if we don't present a victor? What if we present a conversation? She stared at me, her architect's mind clicking into gear, seeing the blueprint I was sketching in the air. A dialectic, my fractured grove of light, my classical unified form, not as alternatives, but as interlocutors. A built argument between Sparrow and Inkwell, I said, my heart pounding with a new kind of excitement. Not a comma, not a full stop, an ellipsis with something new following. The hope that dawned on her face was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It's either genius or madness. There's rarely a middle ground, I finished, quoting her, quoting me. We both laughed then, a real, unguarded sound that echoed under the glass dome. The soldier and the gardener, realizing they'd been tending the same plot all along.
The following week was a fever dream of clandestine meetings and furious, exhilarating work. We met not in boardrooms, but in back corners of the city library, in my studio after hours, once even for a walk along the actual shoreline we theorized about. The dynamic was a surreal, beautiful alchemy. One moment we were Inkwell and Sparrow, finishing each other's sentences about axial symmetry and phenomenological space. The next, we'd slip into Leo and Elara, debating load-bearing compromises with a familiar, sharp-edged passion that no longer felt like conflict, but like a rigorous, necessary dialectic. We were building something new, not her design, not mine. A third thing, a synthesis. Her classical pavilion, serene and grounded, became the heart of the complex. My fragmented, glowing grove of structures wove around and through it, creating courtyards of dappled light and moments of surprising transparency. Her design gave it weight, history, stillness. Mine gave it pulse, future, movement. Where they met, something magical happened. A grand staircase that doubled as an amphitheater, a solid wall that became a lens of filtered glass, a water feature that traced the precise, elegant lines of her foundation plan before cascading in a wild, organic tumble over my reclaimed stone. We called it the Dialogue Pavilion.
Working with her was a revelation. The sharpness I'd hated was precision, a coldness was focus, and underneath it was the deep poetic sensibility I'd fallen for in Sparrow. Seeing her mind work in real time, watching her sketch with swift, confident lines, hearing her argue a point not to win, but to make the idea itself stronger, it was the most potent intellectual attraction I'd ever experienced. The personal walls crumbled in tandem with the professional ones. Over terrible takeout coffee at 2 a.m., she told me about the pressure of being the youngest female VP at Ethelgard, the constant need to be twice as sharp, twice as ruthless. I told her about the insecurity that dogged me at Calder, the fear that my disruptive ideas were just gimmicks. We were two people who had only ever been seen as archetypes, the ice queen, the reckless visionary, showing each other the fragile human machinery behind the masks. "The wine on the shoes," she said one night, grinning sheepishly. "I really am sorry. I saw you laughing with that commissioner, and I just snapped. My Sparrow self was feeling deeply connected to you, and my Elara self was seething. It was a confusing time." I called you a soulless algorithm of aesthetics in an internal memo after that, I admitted. My boss high-fived me. I felt sick after. We were in my studio, the large central table covered in our merged plans. She was leaning against it, arms crossed. The sweater sleeve had slipped down her shoulder. I reached out, almost without thinking, and tugged it back up. My fingers brushed her skin. A simple, domestic gesture. The air between us crackled, thick with everything unsaid. We both froze. The hum of the city outside faded. The only sound was our breathing. "Leo," she whispered. It was the first time she'd used my name with venom or professional context. It sounded like a confession. I cupped her face. Her eyes fluttered shut. "Elara," I breathed back, and it felt like a prayer. The kiss was not a surprise. It was an inevitability, a final perfect merger of the tension we'd been living in for years. It was Sparrow's tenderness and Elara's fire, Inkwell's longing and Leo's resolve. It was the period turning into an ellipsis, the full stop dissolving into a cascade of new beginnings. When we pulled apart, foreheads touching, she laughed softly, a breathless, joyous sound. "Well," she said, "this complicates the narrative." "It simplifies everything," I argued, kissing her again. We didn't work anymore that night. The universe, however, loves a dramatic third act. The day of the final Henderson presentation arrived. Leo and Elara had a revolutionary co-design. Inkwell and Sparrow were in love. The soldier was dormant. The gardeners were in full bloom. We agreed to present it together, a united front. It was unprecedented, and the board was buzzing with curiosity as we took the stage in the City Hall chamber, side by side. We didn't touch, but the energy between us was a visible force field. We presented the Dialogue Pavilion. We spoke in turns, then overlapped, then finished each other's technical explanations. We were two halves of a single, compelling argument. The board was mesmerized. You could see it in their faces, the shock giving way to fascination, then to admiration. This wasn't a compromise, it was a revelation. We were in the home stretch. Elara was describing the integrated rainwater recycling system, a feature born from my sustainability focus and her engineering rigor. I was watching her, my chest bursting with a pride that had nothing to do with winning. Then the doors at the back of the chamber swung open. Mason Finch, the aging, imperious patriarch of Ethelgard and Finch, marched in, followed by my own boss, David Calder. Both men wore expressions of thunderous betrayal. The presentation ground to a halt. A board member, confused, said, "Mr. Finch, Mr. Calder, we weren't expecting—" "Clearly," Finch boomed, his voice silencing the room. He pointed a bony finger, not at the model, but at us. "What is the meaning of this collusion?" Calder, my mentor, looked at me with profound disappointment. Leo, we are rivals, not collaborators. You were tasked with beating A and F, not joining them. This is a profound breach of trust. The room erupted into murmurs. The beautiful synthesis we'd built was being framed as treason. Elara straightened her spine, every inch the Ice Queen. This isn't collusion, Mason. It's superior design, the result of synthesizing the best of both firms' approaches for the public good. Without the knowledge or consent of your firms, Finch shot back. You violated your fiduciary duties. You've shared proprietary methodologies. This partnership, he spat the word, is null and void. The board cannot consider a design born of corporate espionage. The espionage word hung in the air, toxic and absurd. Our secret garden was being paved over for a corporate parking lot. I saw the panic flash in Elara's eyes, the same panic clawing at my throat. Our bosses had us cornered. The narrative was being rewritten, not a love story, but a scandal. Then the gardener in me found a weapon, or rather a tool. I stepped forward. Corporate espionage. That's a fascinating interpretation, Mason. David. I looked at my boss, pleading with my eyes for him to remember the idealist he'd hired. What if the proprietary methodology we shared wasn't Ethelgard's or Calder & Strong's? What if it was something we built entirely outside of both firms? A third methodology, one owned by a new independent entity. The room went quiet again. Elara stared at me, comprehension dawning. "What are you talking about, Thorn?" Finch snarled. I picked up the laser pointer and turned back to the screens, to our beautiful merged designs. The core philosophy of the dialogue pavilion, the dialectic, the unity in tension, the comma versus the full stop, wasn't developed on company time or with company resources. It was developed through a private 2-year intellectual exchange, a personal collaboration that predates this specific project by a long margin. I locked eyes with Elara. A spark of defiant understanding passed between us. We were going to tell the truth, not the whole truth, but enough. Elara and I, the name feeling powerful on my lips in this arena, have been anonymous intellectual pen pals for 2 years. We only discovered each other's identities recently. This design, I gestured to the screens, is the physical manifestation of that dialogue. It doesn't belong to A and F or C and S. It belongs to the dialogue itself, to us. The silence was absolute. You could hear the hum of the projector. A board member, an older woman with sharp eyes, leaned forward. "Let me understand. You're saying this partnership isn't a recent corporate strategy. It's the result of a personal, long-term meeting of minds." "Yes," Elara said, her voice clear and strong. "Our firms didn't bring us together. Our minds did. This design is proof that the best result for the city lies not in choosing between 2 rival visions, but in synthesizing them. We're not asking you to choose a firm. We're asking you to choose an idea." Finch and Calder were sputtering, but the tide had turned. The story was too good, too human. The star-crossed intellectual rivals, unknowingly connecting, creating something greater than the sum of their parts. It was a narrative the board and the public could love. A scandal had just been reframed as a romance. The sharp-eyed board woman smiled. "Well," she said, "that certainly is a new one, and I have to say, the design is extraordinary. It seems your dialogue was quite productive." We had them, not with threats, but with a better story.
In the end, the board awarded the Henderson project to a newly formed temporary joint venture, Thorn and Vance. Our firms, shamed and pressured by the positive public and media reaction to the rival pen pals story, had little choice but to grudgingly agree. Finch and Calder saw the writing on the wall: fight us and look like petty villains, or take a share of the glory and the fees. They chose the latter.
The victory party was held at a downtown loft. It was filled with colleagues, board members, and press. Elara and I stood together, receiving congratulations. We were a sensation. The architectural world was buzzing about the dialogue duo. Across the room, I saw David Calder approaching. He held 2 glasses of champagne. He handed one to me, one to Elara. His expression was complex: resignation, pride, lingering hurt. "It's a hell of a design," he said finally. "I may not like how you got there, but I can't argue with what's on the page." He looked at Elara. "You're as sharp as they say, Vance. Keep him honest." He nodded and melted back into the crowd. It was the closest to a blessing we would get. Later, on the balcony overlooking the city's sparkling grid, we finally had a moment alone. The sounds of the party were a muffled echo behind us. Elara leaned on the railing, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. "Pen pals," she mused, sipping her wine. "It sounds so innocent when you say it like that. It omits the part where I fell in love with a username." I stood beside her, our shoulders touching. "It omits the part where I was plotting the professional downfall of the woman I was sharing my soul with." She turned to me. "What now, Inkwell? We won the battle. We changed the narrative. But the war between our firms, our roles, it's still out there." She gestured to the skyline, where the logos of Ethelgard and Finch and Calder and Strong lit up different towers. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Thorne and Vance has a nice ring to it, but that's a big leap off a very tall cliff." "Like a seaside cliff?" she asked, a playful smile on her lips, quoting our past. I smiled back. "Exactly like that." I took her hand. "But maybe we don't need to leap yet. Maybe we just continue the dialogue, see where it leads, 1 comma at a time." She laced her fingers through mine, solid and sure. "I can work with that." She looked out at the city, our city, that we would now reshape a tiny piece of together. "You know, for 2 years I thought my secret garden was the only place I could be real. I was wrong." She looked back at me, her gaze full of a quiet, fierce joy. "Turns out I just needed to find the other gardener." I kissed her then, under the vast, indifferent sky, surrounded by the city we loved and challenged. It wasn't an ending. It wasn't even a definitive beginning. It was the long, lingering comma we'd chosen, a pause full of potential, a breath held before the next beautiful sentence. Posted in r/relationships by you/InkandArrows on June 15th, 8 months later. Title: Update: The Rival Pen Pal Story. The Dialogue Pavilion opens today. Flair, happy update.
Hey Reddit, it's me again, the rival/pen pal guy. You all gave me such incredible support and wisdom when my world was a paradox 8 months ago. I promised an update, and today is the day. The Dialogue Pavilion opens to the public this afternoon. Walking through it this morning during the final inspection was surreal. The sunlight dapples through the glass grove onto the solid stone of the central pavilion exactly as we dreamed. Children are already running their hands over the water feature that traces from Elara's precise geometry into my chaotic stonefall. Students are sitting on the staircase amphitheater, sketching. It exists. Our argument made of steel and glass and light. Our secret garden made public. A lot of you asked what happened next after the presentation showdown. Well, Thorne and Vance is more than a temporary joint venture now. We've formally established it as a boutique design studio. We have 3 new projects, all smaller than Henderson, all chosen because they excite us. We work from a bright, messy studio with 2 desks that face each other. We argue constantly, passionately. We call it productive friction. Sometimes we disagree so vehemently we have to stop and go for a walk. We always come back with a better idea. Our old firms? There's a chilly détente. They're competitors again, but the nature of the game is changed. The dialogue duo story made collaboration less of a dirty word in our niche. I like to think we made the arena a little less bloody for everyone. And Elara, Sparrow? She's asleep next to me as I type this early morning update. Her espresso bob is messy on the pillow. The notebook she brought to the orchid house sits on our shared bedside table next to my folder of her words. The soldier and the gardener have made peace. They take turns. Some days we're fierce partners battling a client's closed mind. Some nights we're just two people sharing a blanket on the couch, reading aloud to each other. It's not a fairy tale. It's messy and complicated and requires constant communication. We're learning each other's languages, the daylight one and the moonlight one, and sometimes we still mistranslate. But we have a rule now, born from our story. When we hit a wall, professional or personal, we write each other a note. Not an email, a pen and paper note. We sign them Inkwell and Sparrow. It forces us back to the garden, to the essence of who we are beneath the armor. So, to anyone out there living in a paradox, feeling like different versions of yourself are at war, or secretly tending a garden no one knows about, the walls between worlds can be thin. Sometimes the person on the other side of the door is the one you least expect and most need. Have the courage to turn the handle. You might just find you're missing dialectic, and maybe, just maybe, build something beautiful together. Thank you, Reddit. Our dialogue continues. Leo and Elara. P.S. The first note she left me on my desk at our new studio was a haiku. Two solitudes meet, not to end, but to converse. Our long comma begins.
That's it for today's stories. If you want to see more of the best threads Reddit has to offer, make Reddit Be Mine a part of your daily routine. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a heartbeat. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next thread.